Welcome everybody to Capes and Scowls West. Issue 16.75, let's call this one. So for our loyal, avid, ravishing, amazing, awesome, and sexy viewers out there,
Wow.
I assume
Welcome.
all of you are at least,
Yeah.
because I can see through the camera and the microphone into your room right now. It's not creepy, don't worry about it. But
I'm not
for-
cringing for you.
but for our average fans out there, they will know that we did a reviews episode prior to our
I think at the
short
end of
New
the year,
Year's
we just kind of
our
like
New
had a
Year's
bunch of
hiatus.
meetings. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
holidays.
our 0.5 issues are typically reviews, since we did a review one previously, and this is our 16th episode 16 review issue. We are dubbing this 16.75. So it's not confusing. Don't worry about it. Let's review stuff.
It'll be fine. I'm not concerned about
It'll
it.
be fine.
So what do y'all have for us today?
Well, I have Star Wars: The Storms of Crate. It's so the biggest thing with this one is I definitely like the art style in it. I mean, I don't know if anybody's actually read it, but
Yeah, it looks
really-
super like the actors.
yeah, it's super
crazy.
realism,
Oh, wow.
but
Yeah.
it's like they drew it. It's weird. It's just weird, but I liked it. So
really cool.
I can't even remember who wrote any of this. So we got Ben Acker, Ben Blacker. Wow, that is as your writers. And your artist is Mike Mayhew. So, but yeah, artistically, like, really awesome because it's so realistic, but it still has like, I feel like it has like that color pencil finish.
Yeah.
So it's really cool, but like reading it though, I'm like, all right, neat. What's next?
I feel like it's such just a one-off. It's
It
like,
really,
hey,
if this was more of a series, like if they did this more where they, like, I don't know, I feel like there needs to be more to this than just this, like, one issue.
it's a direct tie-in to The Last Jedi. It's the idea that Crate is a planet they've been to before.
I
And,
actually think it's before The Last Jedi.
oh yeah, it's a prequel. It's all the way
No, I think it's like after, it's after,
to Empire.
yeah.
Or not Empire, after the original Death Star.
Yeah, it's
exploded.
after The Last Hope because she kissed him on the cheek and I was like, what?
Yeah. So it's one of those things where
Princess.
yeah, it's a moment where they went to try to find a new rebel base, and that's why in The Last Jedi the Crate base has supplies, is because of this story.
Well, that's the funny thing too, is I
The
keep
crate
looking,
base has crates.
like, I
Crate
will
base
say
has
this
crates.
is, like, Carrie
Nice.
Fisher's
You heard it here
stuff was,
first.
like,
Yeah.
spot on,
Yeah.
to be quite honest. Like, her like, little side grin and
Yeah.
everything, like, tore up my heartstrings.
Right.
But, I mean, it was,
I liked Luke having a lightsaber duel with a stormtrooper.
yeah,
That was kind of
interesting.
cool.
I don't know, it was alright. I feel like if it was more, I would have liked to have more of this, because I like seeing Princess Leia's side of things. I actually really want to read the Bloodlines book.
Yeah, me too.
But it's just as a one-off, I'm like, neat.
Yeah. Last Jedi tie-in.
Yeah, but I was like, cool. I was kind of hoping this would be cooler than that. All right, neat. Moving on with my day is pretty much how that went. What do you got now?
I've got X-Men Grand Design #1 by Ed Piskor. And nobody else. Just by Ed Piskor.
Oh, wow. He does everything?
Yeah, he's...
Writing, art,
He's
colors.
listed in the book as cartoonist. That's his only title. And
Oh,
then
really?
then
But
it's,
except nobody else has
it's
the
no
possession.
editor, president, group editors, creative officer.
Uh-huh.
I have to apologize because when I first saw this, I was like, who cares?
I think we're all upset though anymore because there's 14 different X-Men titles, and I want to stop seeing X-Men titles.
So yeah, and that was the thing. It's like there was this sort of like the
Stigma?
venom at X-Men.
Yeah.
That's weird.
Yeah.
But yeah, just being tired of the X-Men stuff. Well, this is a retelling of the entire X-Men history and the history of mutants. With
Do you have any more copies of
I
that?
don't think. Watu is finally being summoned by the recorder of the Watchers to record the story of Earth. So he's telling the story of mutants to his recorder, who looks like a weird green Iron Man, which is kind of hilarious.
He does look weird right now.
And he starts at the beginning of like how mutants are a stigma, yet our entire the civilization of humanity is all based on mutation moving us further,
Mm-hmm.
and frames the whole story in this event of Namor the Submariner, the first mutant, flooding New York. And then it literally runs the entire history of the X-Men and the mutant characters until the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants is formed. And you get these little snippets of all these classic comic stories done in this new way, and it is one person's singular vision and perspective on this whole story, and it's beautiful. It's ugly. This goes back to issue 16 where we talked about Miyazaki having like his characters are kind of ugly, and that's sort of real, like that. And it feels that way here. Like everybody's just kind of ho hum. Nothing. No one is truly special, and all the designs work really well. Like Xavier looks like a wizard. Like he has these crazy eyebrows, and he was bald from childhood. And Magneto, as a teenager, looks like Quicksilver. So when you see Quicksilver later, it looks like Magneto did. So, he's Magneto's son. So there's this tie to the character's history, and it has like.
I really want to read this now.
It's really cool. It was really fun.
I do want to ask: does it read kind of like a history book, or does it read more like a superhero story?
It reads more like a superhero story. It jumps around, but it doesn't ever feel like it's an issue. Like, it doesn't ever feel like it's a problem that it's jumping around.
Okay, I was thinking.
Yeah.
First you said issue. And
Right. I realized as I said issue, I'm like, wait a minute, that's gonna.
Everybody's like brain is starting to like hemorrhage a little bit.
it's chronologic, and it starts once you get into the modern mutants, it really takes the story of Xavier, and so he's your tie to everything, and it's him finding Cyclops, finding Iceman. Them as the earliest form of X-Men going and saving Beast. And the communications with Jean Grey are super brilliant, and he's hiding her, and she's trying to understand her powers and seeing flashes of the future because she's reading like through telepathy what's happening. It's really, really brilliant. And yeah, it feels, as somebody I read compared it to DC's New Frontier, where it's just one person's singular vision of the history of characters. And it is going to be 6 parts. It's done in 2-issue chunks, and they're oversized, like they're big, thick issues. And since it's one person, there's no ads up until the end of the book.
So it's 6.
Really?
It's 6 parts, and there are 2 issues
each. Well, no, it's 6 issues total, 3 parts, so 2.
Okay. Okay.
And it looks like it's just going to do the X-Men's history. I don't know when what point it's going to end, like how far into the modern age they're going to get. But
that's kind of interesting that it's framed from Uatu's perspective.
This came out this week, right?
Name.
2 came out this week.
It's interesting that it's framed from this one person's perspective telling the story, and then in a more meta way, it is one person who is telling the story of this one person telling the story.
Exactly, and I think that's the perfect way to do
Yeah.
it. Is you have it's definitely, you can tell it's a passion project. Like, this was not something that somebody was like passively
it's just I'm so sick of seeing X-Men, damn it.
But this feels like this is, I can't wait till they get to 90s X-Men, because the TV show was exactly what made me like those characters. So I will be.
I wonder if they'll get into like the last issue is going to be future X-Men that we haven't seen yet.
Oh, that would be really cool. Actually, that'd be an interesting way to do that. I wouldn't mind if they ended it on the Grant Morrison run, because just like looking back on that, it was such an of its time, but it really advanced storytelling in a really, really like poignant way, and it was really weird, and it felt like it was at the heart of X-Men. It's like the oddity of humanity, or the oddity of mutation. So this is great. I mean, I wasn't going to pick this up, and I did, and I absolutely loved it. So kudos to Marvel to try to do something different.
I'm just, like I said, I see X-Men, and then I'm like revolted for a minute. I'm like, more? Yeah, what? What color is this one?
Cat's going to be an actual cat soon and just start popping up hairballs around the X-Men titles.
I'm just gonna start getting yelled at.
What do you got next?
I think we should talk about. Let's see. We'll talk about Nightwing New Order. We'll go that route. So, freaking finally I find out what the hell his problem is.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna crack this open because I want to flip through it as you're talking.
But I mean, I hit number 4 and I was kind of like sitting here like, all right, what now? And then I got number 5 and I'm like, oh, this is what's now. You finally get to you run into Superman, which Superman looks like a freaking badass in this one. Like I honestly like the cover itself. I wish I could have a giant poster of it in my bedroom.
He kind of looks like.
It looks like a freaking militia war hero.
Looks like Mad Max.
I was gonna say he looks like Kurt Russell.
Oh yeah, he's got a bit of a Kurt Russell thing going on.
Yeah, you're totally right. But you get to see some interaction as well.
The death of Batman.
Yeah, that's. You finally find out what you know what, this is spoilers, and if you
It's
haven't,
reviews,
yeah,
you
it's
should know
reviews.
it's spoiling.
So we're spoiling this for you, but so it turns out that Superman is actually the one that killed Batman. He didn't do it of his own free will. They said black kryptonite is what they said. And Lex Luthor, Superman is also working with Lex Luthor, hilariously enough. He also
Lex Luthor is intertwined in Superman's story.
Yeah.
What?
That's
But
so unexpected. Oh
he,
my gosh.
Yeah, so it turns out that Superman actually killed Batman, and to be quite honest with you, I'm a little surprised, even though it's been quite a few years, that he's still as put together as he is, because at the end of the day, Batman was his best friend.
Yeah.
He literally killed his best friend.
Biffles.
Dude, oh my god. I mean, just the one page of what you see when they don't even say anything of what happens. You just turn to the next page, and I was like, holy shit.
Yeah. It's beautifully illustrated.
Yeah. And I mean, the thing is Superman. I think the only thing that's probably I kind of thought about it afterwards is the only thing that's really dominating his conscience is if I can get my superpowers back, then I can be better. And I mean, and you see the interaction between Corey and Jake, which is of course like very hostile. He won't even call her mom. He calls her specifically Corey, and I think they even bolded it in the text.
Yeah, so he's not happy.
Yeah. So, and the other thing is too is you also get to see the fact that Nightwing is still sticking to his guns. He's like, we still need to keep this. We still need to do this. And I'm like, and of course, the one thing that I remember from that as well is just him saying, "Of course you believe that. You don't have to follow the rules. You believe in it, but you don't have to follow it for your own kid." Yeah. So they accused him of.
That was a really great scene in issue 3, I want to say.
Well, no, in this one he does it again. He does it in this one too.
I haven't actually read this one yet.
Oh
no! I'm a little behind.
Oopsie.
So
spoiling stuff for you.
Yeah.
Too.
It's okay. Honestly,
everything, guys.
Honestly, for me, a good comic, like you can spoil as much like individual things that happen for me, but a really good comic is all about the ride and the way that you get to that.
I just can't remember what he says. I can't remember what it's.
Like the fact that I know that Batman dies now, I was kind of like, oh, cool. But what leads up to that? What is the context of this happening?
I also like to get that seeing Nightwing actually cut loose again and actually be able to.
There it is. I found it. Of course, Cyborg's the one that says to it. You believe in this system just so long as you don't have to, and this is bolded, as you don't have to live by its rules. Nothing I love more than a militant hypocrite. So Cyborg turns around and calls him out for it because it's right. He's basically saying, I'm going to take Jake, we're going to go to Italy or Russia where things are less strict. And they're like, no, he's the one who's going to be able to cure this. No.
Yeah.
Because they all want their superpowers back. And his son finally comes out and says, no, I want to do this. There are people who made bad decisions with their powers, but there are also the ones who were trying to help those with their superpowers.
This is the penultimate issue, right? Issue 6 is the end.
Yes.
Like we're right there. We're sitting at the very cusp.
Still questions about where Wonder Woman is. Still.
I think she's in stasis.
Oh,
I'm pretty sure. When we were looking at it, I'm pretty sure you saw her figure line in the stasis because I don't think she's a god. So how do you stop her powers?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Like where
and then of course Lois Lane and Superman and bullshit, whatever.
I feel like also you don't need everybody to make a cameo.
No.
It's only 6 issues.
Yeah.
Now, like.
Well, the cover had Superman using Wonder Woman's shield, so
yeah.
Sword.
Well, and the other thing is too is they lock up Nightwing, and you know what? Like I'm actually like a little disappointed. Like I understood he's sticking to his guns and everything. And I was hoping that maybe he'd turn it around, but nope.
Yeah.
He at the very end of it, he's calling Kate Kane. trying to screw everyone over, basically. So I'm really curious what's going to happen in this final issue because they're trying to figure out a cure for the cure that they made, that they did.
Yep.
And so we're finally hitting the end, and that Met issue kind of led into, I guess it made this one more exciting. So there's that.
This is what happens when you deal in absolutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. Are you gonna talk about Spider-Man?
I think I'll
I
do.
saw
Okay,
that.
so my New Year's resolution, I was telling Nat, is for this podcast, I am not going to review things that I've reviewed before. Except if it's a mini series, I will review the last issue and the series as a whole. I think though, just for the sake of because I like to hear myself talk, I will continue Leander's legacy and do a love it or hate it for things that we're not going to
Ooh.
talk about.
Okay.
Really, we're talking about Doomsday Clock and White Knight.
Yep.
Correct. Okay.
Okay.
So then I have this is Spider-Man 236, written by Brian Michael Bendis, with art by Oscar.
Which, by the way, our little fella's over at DC.
Yeah,
Everybody
he's
see that lovely picture of him standing for the DC sign, just giving the finger guns?
So
Anyway, sorry.
great, really good. Finishing with a bang on Spider-Man.
Sweet.
Paper Girls number 19.
Covered by yours.
Brian K. Vaughan, writer, Cliff Chang, art, really good.
Okay.
Loved it.
Yeah.
Definitely continue.
I heard really good. That was it.
That's all you needed.
Like I said, I'm doing Love It or Hate It. I'm not gonna review them. Jetsons 3, with written by Jimmy Palmiotti and art by Pierre Brito.
Ooh.
And amazing, awesome. Really loved it. Jetsons ramping up.
I'm really.
awesome.
They have only 6 issues though, so I'm super curious how that's gonna go.
It's good. I'm glad
Yeah.
that it's a tight series though.
All right.
Yeah, it's ramping up well, but I definitely don't see it continuing after
Okay.
much longer. Mostly because there's 2 separate apocalyptic events that are unavoidable so far in it.
No, well, neat. All right, cool.
Yeah. Anyway, that was a little bit longer of a review than I wanted.
I
for
also
that one.
asked questions.
Yeah.
Bad cat, bad cat.
No, that's fine. I guess that's what we're here to do is ask questions and discuss comics. Anyway,
Anyways.
so that's it for my reviews of the week.
Cool. I'm moving on to Extremity number 10 by Daniel Warren Johnson with colors by Mike Spicer. Yeah, I said this was my favorite book of 2017, and it continues to be a fantastic story. We get a lot of background history that in the underground world or the world beneath the clouds, and we're finding that all of the rejected materials have been collected into kind of library. A library and temple that are showing the story of what happened with the fall of society. And just randomly, there's this giant mech suit that is absolutely fucking badass. Just you turn the page and they're going through, basically a library setting or a temple setting, and then boom, giant mech. And there's also history of what happened through frescoes and talking about these evil entities, these demon-looking things with all these tendrils, and what that they brought along the calamity that ended things and separated the tribes. And the assumption up until this point was that there's this robot character that has been walking around with Thea and her brother, and that he was part of the defense, he was what we had built. That's not the case at all. However, in this story, it turns out that those robots were actually what caused the Great Calamity. So he
Robot takeover. I'm not shocked, God.
well, I think he's more techno-organic, because when a signal is disrupted, he becomes this monstrous creature that was basically the creature in the frescoes, and it looks like they are going to have to stop Shiloh, the robot, and stop their own father from continuing this war. This is it's heavy stuff. It's really great art, really great sci-fi fantasy stuff, and yeah, I can't say enough about this one. This is just one of the best books on shelves. So yeah, continue reading Extremity. Pick up the trades. Keep going.
Woo! All right, Doomsday Clock number 2.
Oh yeah.
So I keep
Oh, I'm
reading
so
these
tired.
without reading Watchmen, and it's really starting to aggravate me because I'm like, God, I feel like I'm missing so many things.
You're not actually.
Okay,
So
good.
one of the things that I actually really enjoy about this is that they introduce like new characters that aren't even mentioned in Watchmen, or
Yeah,
they
except
might
these
be
characters are,
mentioned,
like,
but like
Yeah.
super horrifying.
yeah. So you got the mime and the marionette, which is like
Super freaking creepy.
Joker
Yeah.
and Harley
the
Quinn.
Joker
Yeah.
and Harley Quinn.
Well, that's the thing is
type
what I've kind of.
except like even weirder in certain aspects.
I think that's the Watchmen lens was the deconstruction of the superhero. I mean,
And that's
Oh,
the one
yeah.
thing. The one thing I will say is that we're meeting counterparts everywhere. Like
Whoa.
Doctor Midnight is definitely has to be Superman's counterpart. You got Rorschach and
Manhattan.
I'm sorry, what? Wow.
Yeah. It's Superman
it's
Superman
from
with
the
Captain
Manhattan
Adams.
Project,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, I just wanted to slap myself in the face.
Well,
Don't
and
worry
it's
about it.
it's funny because in the '80s, Joker at that point in time was barely like coming back as being the darker character.
Mhm.
I don't think Death in the Family had happened by the time Watchmen hit. So now you have a version of the Joker, and Harley wasn't created until 1992.
Yeah.
So these are two new character breakdowns
Well,
that you can explore.
and that's the other thing is you're meeting everybody's counterpart right now. Like
Mhm.
you find Lex Luthor's counter. I can't speak.
Lex Luthor's counterpart is Ozymandias.
Yeah. Which that was actually like a very interesting reveal. I did not really see that one.
And then you have Rorschach, who's obviously Batman's counterpart.
That's questionable
Really?
because he's the
actually
question.
The Night
Yeah, that's
Owl.
true.
Night Owl is
Batman's counterpart. He's not in the story though right now. Yeah, the question.
The question.
That's right.
Well, Night Owl should.
One of the things that I love
Probably make an
that I
appearance.
really want to see happen in this is it's such a small thing, but the mime he has like this. It seems like he's just miming like.
I
guns and
want it
stuff.
to be a gun.
I want him to shoot somebody
Yeah,
with
me
his
too.
finger.
Because I'm
I'm pretty sure he did in the first issue.
He did not.
he hasn't actually fired. He
So
gets it and like
they are like tied or like handcuffed together at one part, and like the marionette, she's like, "Did you bring your lockpick?" And he's like, "Mm-hmm." And then the next scene, they're out of the handcuffs.
right, but they don't show how that happened.
Yeah, so I'm assuming that he actually has just like invisible stuff, and everybody keeps making fun of him. They're
Right.
Like, why you stop pointing your finger at me? I really wanted to shoot
I
somebody.
really wanted to shoot
I
somebody
I
too.
also want to point out though, up in the sky is that a plane? I'm just saying that was.
Oh
amazing.
yeah.
Anybody else? The
Mhm.
other thing too that really was like gut wrenching in this too is when they're talking about their background story, why they wanted the mime and the marionette to show up, and seeing that scene where they're robbing the bank, and that the bank advisor just talking
Talking so shitty to the teller.
to the teller
Yeah.
because she was worried. He was threatening her kid. I
Yeah.
would do the same thing, and she's like, he has special needs.
Yeah.
And he comes around and says that I don't even want to say them. They're just
Yeah.
so mean. And like the
Yeah.
other thing is too is like I don't know if anyone noticed, but in the photo he's holding like,
Oh
a little
no,
figure.
he's got an
too.
Ozymandias doll.
Yeah, I saw that.
One of the things too with Dr. Manhattan's appearance in here, the poignancy that Dr. Manhattan at this point in time had a conscience.
Yeah.
So this is early enough in like the Dr. Manhattan character that he hadn't separated himself from reality. So
Yeah.
realizing that she's pregnant, he doesn't
I just
atomize her.
she's definitely Harley Quinn. Like she's definitely her counterpart. She's like, wow, nice briefs.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
There's-
and the fact that he's still wearing briefs.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true. Yeah, that's right. I guess towards the end he just starts walking around naked.
That
Yeah.
is true.
So this was during the Minutemen era, I would,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I would guess.
But-
And then another
No,
thing.
Ozymandias is part of the second group, so it is part of the.
Yeah.
So it's later, but not to the point that he's completely succumbed.
Yes.
Because Ozymandias was not part of the original Minutemen.
No, he was not. The only one that continues through both of them is the comedian.
Comedian.
Yes.
When he gets his more 80s costume.
Yeah, so like talking about mirroring stuff, like I don't know, this comic really is a lot about like mirroring and like taking the Rorschach test to like another level.
Well,
like
that's-
the Batman protest that we have here, definitely mirror.
I actually had a friend who
like
was
the
pissed off about
Police
their-
brutality.
Yeah.
the protests from the first issue of Watchmen.
Well, that's
Oh, yeah.
about
That's the thing is that-
anti-nuclear
Mhm.
or anti whatever the protests were
Yeah.
about in the first issue of Watchmen.
Well, that's the other thing is they're actually drawing parallels, and I didn't think that they were actually going to go into a world where they're also writing once again in streets, but it's not over the same things.
Yeah.
It's over superheroes themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is we were
Well,
talking.
That's
like
Watchmen.
that
Yeah.
mirrors the original Watchmen.
Well, yeah,
Who
no.
watches the Watchmen?
Yeah. Well, the thing is,
And in fact, there's even like a little like a panel here. I need to go back to the original one where they have like the Batman
Mm-hmm.
like on like a noose or whatever in
Yeah.
the riot thing, and I'm pretty sure that that's almost like exactly.
It might actually be
from
Night Owl
Watchmen.
in.
I really think it is.
well, the thing is the other part of it is like they're talking about not trusting Batman anymore, and there's no talks of Superman at all.
Yeah, there's a weird. Well,
And I
I'm-
feel like they said something about it, and I just missed it. But
I'm questioning whether or not we're looking at our current DC universe in this story because there isn't that sort of dissension for Batman in the current DC. So is this not really like our Earth Prime?
Well, aren't they technically saying that maybe this is New 52? Isn't that what they were talking about? Because that's
Maybe.
where that's the universe he created was New 52. Is the whole I think is what
You
a
know
lot of
what?
fans' theories are
Yeah.
because
That
everybody.
does make more sense because Superman is he with Lois in the first issue at the
Yes.
end?
Yes, I believe so.
See, that does not correlate because he wasn't really with Lois Lane.
No, he was
in
with
the New
Wonder
50.
Woman.
He was with Wonder Woman late in the story.
Mhm.
But his parents were killed in the New 52. Like he was a hero because they were gone.
Mhm.
Interesting. I'm wondering.
So that's my thing is I'm wondering if that's the other thing is we haven't seen Wonder Woman yet.
Yeah.
We've only run into Batman so far.
And did we get a full shot of Batman? Do we actually see like the suit, or is it just?
Yeah.
Oh, that could be. Is that the only shot?
There's another one of his head. Yeah, there's a very end where
Okay,
he faces
so-
Rorschach. Yeah, and then
I mean, there's this
You
right
get-
here.
Because
Yeah.
Johns is writing this, we need to look at the visual cues. Oof, that's rough. The visual cues. So Batman has a yellow utility belt.
He does.
He doesn't have. Is he wearing tights underneath?
I think so. He's got the gray. It looks like that's what it's more of is the gray suit.
And you can't see the symbol.
Mm-mm.
It almost looks like the circular symbol from. Interesting. So they're not exactly telling us that it's Rebirth because the Rebirth Batsuit is very specific. There are design elements in that harken
Well, that's
to
what makes me
the
think
history of the
that
character.
we're gonna end up maybe in two different universes at some point because I'm pretty like this. Just reading this and just looking at some of it, like I know that he was with Lois Lane, but it's making me question if this is the New 52 universe that he created. But I'm curious where Wonder Woman is. And I'm curious as to where Superman is as well, because at the
Yeah.
beginning of the first Doomsday Clock, we don't know when that was, like when it was exactly, because I think in the beginning of New 52, wasn't he kind of with Lois? I don't remember. I didn't read
I
New
don't remember
52
either.
Superman. I think if I remember correctly, he was with her at one point, and then they stopped being together because she started dating somebody else, and that's when he started dating Wonder Woman. Is when she showed up. So that's the one thing I would question is timeline wise when you ran into
Yeah.
Superman in that first issue.
I'm gonna have to read a lot more of the like background stuff too in these.
Yeah.
This is really
Yeah.
dense. It's funny.
Awesome. Yeah. The only beef I have with this issue is in the form. So like classic Watchmen style, there are
Yeah, I
a few
saw that. I
pages
just
in the
saw that.
end of basically not even like background, but sort of like supplementary material.
Yeah.
And in this one, it's written out like an online, basically like the bulletin online or the Daily Bugle. I can't remember which
Daily
one.
Planet.
Or Daily Planet.
I was like,
Um,
inside's hurt.
And the only beef I have with this is the format of the writing in this. The paragraphs are way too long for news. It's true. Like there's an article in here by Lois Lane, and the whole thing is like just two very long paragraphs.
Gotcha.
News, you got like 2-sentence paragraphs. I'm just
True.
telling you. I'm just
He's
saying
right.
that right
He's
now,
on the
Geoff
line.
Johns. You're an amazing writer, and all this stuff is really well written and really pertinent and very on point format-wise,
Doesn't quite work.
okay.
His writer side is coming out, so he's a little.
Sorry,
I
that's
need to
just
read
my
all
writer
that
side.
content though, because I initially, when I read the issue, I was kind of like, man, okay, it's cool. We're further in the plot along. In discussing it, I actually really enjoy it a lot more now. Like,
So
just,
this
Well, yeah, and that was
actually,
kind of the
in
thing.
the
Is there's so many
supplementary-
questions I'm left with that
Yeah.
because I don't have timelines, and if I don't have timelines, I can't draw parallels, and I can't. So
Gotcha.
there's still.
I'm kind of enjoying the fact that we're not getting time because it is becoming like an unfolding mystery.
Mhm.
I didn't even think about the fact that it wasn't the rebirth version of.
I didn't think it was going to be.
I'm wondering if what we saw at the beginning was him jumping again. Like he understands that they found him, so he moves to another Earth. And
Mhm.
so they're going to be like chasing Manhattan through the different Earths.
That would be super awesome.
It would be really cool.
But it also makes me curious
yeah,
to
they
realize. It
supplement-
also makes me curious to realize if he forgot who he was.
That
He's
is-
so ingrained in his world that he forgot who he was. Because
I'm wondering if it's going to be smaller too. Like I think it's too easy that all of a sudden that Dr. Manhattan is now Superman in a universe.
Mhm.
I'm really holding my hopes that he's John,
Yeah.
that he's the kid of Superman and Lois,
Mm-hmm.
because I think that would be like if you're trying to explore your own humanity and trying to reconnect, becoming a child,
Yeah.
with like starting from birth and being a kid again
No, it
with
makes
massive
sense.
powers, and then it would totally throw a lot of monkey wrenches into rebirth entirely to all of a sudden find out that the kid hanging out with Damien is like the most powerful being ever.
Yeah.
So
Well, I don't know. It'll
So
be
like I was kind of just thinking about this right now as you talk, but like basically because this is all over my head as far as like fandom goes.
right.
But the supplementary material, what I do have is reading supplementary material. It's all about the quote Superman theory, which is a question of why are most metahumans American, and it has actually like a map in here of like the spread of metahumans around the world, and it's basically like this sort of conspiracy type theory that metahumans are a underground. It's a weird like two-part conspiracy thing that metahumans are actually like an experiment by the U.S. government in
Oh.
cooperation with Lex and Wayne Corps to create these things in response to Superman coming from other planet and doing this. So, but this like Lex Luthor or Superman being Superman in America spawning other superheroes for whatever reason, that would almost make sense that he would be Dr. Man or John might be Dr. Manhattan because from where he is outward is
Yeah.
created this the metahumans or like the sort of a new world.
I feel like one of us just has to delve into all the theories that are out there for a little while and it's just the thing is looking at this is I'm pretty sure I didn't think they were going to be in Rebirth to begin with. I know they had talked about it. I'm pretty sure that Rebirth will probably make an appearance, but I'm pretty like part of me wants to say they're probably in New 52.
I think it's a different.
They're either in New 52, but I know they're not in Rebirth. That one I was for sure on. Yeah, I'm thinking that it'll probably show
Well,
up.
because I think this is the story that is going to lead to rebirth.
Yeah.
So I think something is going to like fracture the fabric of reality. That is
Probably the dude who can fracture
Yeah,
reality.
exactly. Probably Dr. Manhattan. All right. Well, we chatted about that for a long time. I'm going to
Yeah,
do
right.
my last review,
Okay.
which is
Yeah.
Batman and the Signal #1. This is written by. Oh, and I'm so sorry. I should have had this ready. It's written by Tony Patrick with the story by Scott Snyder and Tony Patrick. So the collaboration to get it working, and art by Cully Hamner, who is one of the like main character designers with DC Comics. So he does a lot of the refinement of character designs. Then once artist comes up with something, giving the house style and the on model design so that everybody can follow. But this is the story of Duke Thomas as the Signal, finally getting a code name. He's been sidekicking with Batman since the We Are Robin movement. He was present in the 0 year, and this is the idea of what if there was a daylight Batman? What if a Batman who their job was to be out and patrolling in the daytime. So, the dark heroes need to sleep at some point, or have to do their normal lives. So this.
Well,
is
I want his job instead.
Right,
At
exactly.
least I can see better.
But his presence and he has a weird ability where he starts to see patterns of light and like how that changes. He doesn't quite understand it yet. So you're exploring his powers while a meta-human explosion is happening in Gotham. And it's really cool. This was a great intro issue, and it's about a hero who's not really sure if this is what he should be doing. It's like he wants to make a difference.
What a reluctant superhero.
Well, and it's more like his motivations or whether or not he can cure his parents of the Joker syndrome. Like they're broken down. It's like, is this the right path? Is Batman even the right choice? And certainly, is he ready to go on his own while Batman isn't just watching right behind him? Cool, and it's a 3-issue mini, so which I think is great to not have to.
I did pick it up. It just said from the pages of Metal, and I'm like, I haven't been reading Metal, so.
I don't know where Metal ties. Metal's supposed to be tied to stuff, but I haven't seen the connective tissue of where Metal is
I'm
taking
pretty sure
the
it's
series.
probably tied in later with this one.
Yeah, like it has to be after Metal, and that's the big question. I'm wondering if maybe Metal as an event.
Well, no, because if I remember correctly, because I remember reading the first one, he is. That's why I find it funny that he sees patterns of light, considering he was literally stuck in a dark corner for how long, protecting the Joker from coming out of his cage.
But Duke wasn't the only person there. He wasn't just in that section for the first pages of Metal.
It's been a while since I've read it.
Yeah.
I was pretty sure it was him who was guarding him.
I don't think so. Well, because Duke has just been around. He's been around since 0 Year. He's just like an orphan now.
We will come back to this.
Yeah. I don't know.
Go.
I have to
do some looking up.
go look at Metal again.
Yeah, right?
Metal's a mind job. Really.
Oh my god.
But yeah,
Wikipedia.
that's all I've got.
All right.
Awesome.
Let's talk about some White Knight.
I guess we should probably talk about this for a little bit. Halfway through. 4 of 8.
Yeah.
4 of 8, I know.
I'm already sad about it. I'm like, it's gonna end.
It is.
With Sean Murphy by Sean Murphy.
Yeah, Sean Murphy by Sean Murphy.
And other things by Matt Hollingsworth.
I wish I have my copy with me. So.
I honestly can say this. I needed a whole issue just with the date between Harley Quinn and Jack Napier. I just needed a whole issue about all of that. Like,
man, 3 pages, they got sexy, like.
I was just talking about the one literal page.
Well, it's like, is it 3? Oh, it's just 2 pages.
Yeah, it's just the 2.
I like the date sequence, how that played out too.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is like, oh my god, it just made me want to tear up a little bit. It's like, let me show you the kind of love you and I finally deserve. And like, you end on the finally deserve, you're like, ooh la la.
Yeah, apparently DC had a problem with that panel. They were like, it's a little too suggestive, and you read it and you go, yeah.
No, and then the back part of it, I'm like, wow!
It's a little too suggestive, yet there's literally a sex scene on the next page. Or excuse me, post-coitus.
Yeah, right.
I was reading that, and I love how the speech bubbles are very conveniently placed in a few of those panels.
A few issues ago, I actually talked about the fact
You did,
that Sean
I remember
Murphy
that.
had...
Because when I went into this, I was like, oh, do I get that? And I flipped it over, like, oh yeah, everything's covered.
I love it though, because it's what a cheeky way to cover all of the naughty bits in quotations.
Which it's a nipple. Like,
Yeah.
you don't actually see any.
But that's the thing though. Is that's what makes breast illegal is the nipple. I'm not even joking.
No,
I can
I know,
walk out in
right?
public with tape on my nipples and it's fine.
Yeah, that's totally fine. There's like a funny episode of Archer where like one of the characters is naked and she's like, I need to cover up, and one of the other character just puts pasties on her.
That's awesome.
And then she's just running around.
That's fine.
in pasties.
But my thing is I got excited because she's like, is that offer still on the table? What offer?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and I like how Harley proposes to the
Yeah, I
Joker.
know.
Yeah.
Actually.
Well, that's the thing is like, so I'm reading this and you get to see a little back. You finally get what her name too. The
Marion
other Harley.
Drews.
Marion Drews,
You finally
the
get her
Neo
name.
The
Joker.
Neo Joker.
And that's
Which I love her fucking costume.
Oh, me
too.
too.
Can she, like, dear DC, when you actually incorporate both Harleys into
Oh
it,
my
can you
God.
please put Marion Drews into the Neo Joker outfit?
Yeah.
So much better than the
Jesus.
Harley Quinn outfit.
So much better.
And her face makeup
I'm
too.
hurt right now. No, I enjoy my 90s Harley Quinn.
Oh no, not that one.
Oh, okay.
The modern
Oh,
Harley.
oh, okay. I was
Harleen Quinzel goes back into the 90s Harley Quinn outfit, and Marion Drews goes into the Neo Joker outfit.
You want to know the one thing that I can honestly say I enjoy is the fact that like they find out about what's going on and everything, and he puts his headset on trying to figure out what's going on. She can't get any control, and he's like, she's like, and Harley is literally getting dressed in her costume, saying, "Gotta stop her," and he's like, "Who? Isn't it obvious the other Harley Quinn?" And she's got her freaking mallet and everything, and she's so torn up,
Right.
and she's ready to beat some ass.
Another element of the story that I really enjoyed is the whole idea of what do they call it? The
Gotham terrorist
Organization?
Yes,
something like
the
that.
the GTO.
Gotham terrorist oppression, that's what it was.
And that's like a super cop organization that would work with
Nightwing and
with Batman and
Yeah,
hold that family.
except he obviously refuses.
Yeah,
So,
except Nightwing and Batgirl are very much on board.
They
Yeah.
seem to be super on the fence about like whether or not they should do it, but they're certainly leaning that way. Aren't
Yeah,
they?
well, and that's
Yeah.
the thing is that's
Well,
why he did
they
what he did, because he, as he said, he's like, Batgirl pulled him off me.
Yeah.
And the other thing is too is like not even just like you go into her background as well, which that in itself was like.
Well, they answered the Stockholm syndrome question by just saying, "Hey, she has Stockholm syndrome."
Well, there's that, but it's not even that. Like, you have the one person who finally cares about her enough. I'm like, she's literally killing herself in the Gotham bank right now, and you get to see that, which is just upsetting in itself.
Yeah.
And he bandages her wounds.
Yeah.
I'm just like torn up.
Like totally going away from like the
Well, no, there's
fan, like the character fan part of this. Opening up, my favorite part of this whole issue is the opening sequence and with the like riot and Backport.
Yeah.
Or not riot, but
it's a peaceful protest.
the
It's an
peaceful
actual
protest. Yeah,
peaceful
the
protest.
gathering and speech, the basically support for John Napier as for councilman.
Well, now you see
And
what's...
then like once I think he says it like explicitly too as he's taking away, just remember that this was a peaceful protest until Batman showed up, which is
that's
very metaphorical.
That's the thing, is it like you've got police brutality, then you run into mental health issues at the end of it, watching her like literally slit her wrist in a bank.
Yeah.
And then it talks about abusive relationships, and not even just like the norm abusive relationships of like like not even just like relationships between people, but the relationship between Nightwing and Dick and Barbara and Bruce is actually in itself pretty abusive, because he's just so cold to them. He's running around beating up people, and they're like, "Hey, we're trying to help you. What the hell?" And he's like, "I don't care. I'm doing what I want."
He's so like out of it at this point. I think like one of my other favorite parts in this is when Batman arrives at the march that they're doing.
He literally comes in and like hooks him around the neck.
He comes in and just beats up
He just like pile drives
Duke
in.
and Jack Napier
Yeah.
right off the bat. And then Batgirl's like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "Keeping this from escalating." Which literally, like the panel right before he shows up, they're just like talking to each other.
Yeah, they're trying to walk through the
Well, that's the thing is that was
fair.
probably right there. Is I think at this point they're playing a game of chess, and Batman doesn't realize it because he's so in his own head. And,
Yeah, they're playing chess and he's playing checkers.
Yeah.
Right.
And so the other part of it is too is like I said, you see that the mental health side, you see the police brutality. There's so much to this, and then of course you see Batman is losing everything, and and Jack Napier is becoming more. But now I see where they're going to have a problem arise, which is the Neo Joker trying to get rid of Jack Napier.
Yeah, trying to bring the Joker.
So
back.
I have a feeling that we're gonna have a freaking showdown between the two Harleys, and I'm like ready for this.
I'm confused about what the ending means. Like, I felt like it was we're supposed to, I guess, that the Waynes are Nazis? Is that
that was...
Oh, with Dr. Freeze?
Yeah, with Baron von Freeze, who was a Nazi, and then his child Victor.
I don't think it was that they are Nazis
I
specifically.
think it's more of
but
they
at
took
least
his
Nazi
tech.
sympathizers.
I don't know if it's Nazi sympathizers, but more of like they took on, because I know a lot of what America did in that time frame as well was, yes, there were the Nazi scientists, but they took those Nazi scientists, and that's how we ended up with the atom bomb. Is we gave them that. So I think it's more of they took his technology and protected him. Is what the biggest thing was.
I
That
wonder
would
if
be
this is
my
gonna
guess.
like be a proof of that Bruce Wayne is Batman kind of scenario, like using that background. I don't know where that like where this pertains to the story, like
Yeah.
because
I
it has to
don't
do with
either.
Victor Freeze and
I
Freeze
don't
trying to
Well,
save
that's
Alfred.
the other thing too. Is Freeze and him were working together as well in
Right.
this, so it also makes me rather curious as to if that's probably why that relationship is pertinent, because it's like, wait, why is he working with Victor Freeze? They've always fought, and he's using his technology right now. And I think that's what it is they're not necessarily Nazi sympathizers, but they saw the technology they had and they wanted it. I think that's probably more what it is, and that's why they have a relationship, because their family ties
Well,
go
it's like
back.
Yeah, I wish-
medical science.
I wish
technology.
I had
Yeah.
a little bit more context that we could talk about this, because like if we had a date on this,
Yeah.
we could, if this was pre or post World War II, we could
Oh,
say
yeah.
we could say much more definitively
That's
whether
true.
this was just technology or whether this was ideological.
I like to see that. I like to
And
be on the
then-
positive side of things.
Yeah. Well, honestly, like before the war started, there was a lot of people in America who were on board with Hitler's ideology because it sounded good at the time. Like people, like eugenics was a big thing back then.
Yeah.
And like, you know, it's a pretty racist but somewhat positive way
Yeah.
for
Well,
things.
the question that I have too is it's Neo, Joker, and Mad Hatter who find this information out. So it's not like something that can be used as the weapon against Batman.
Unless he gets his hands on it. Jack Napier
Jack.
is really intelligent.
Do you think like maybe a way to entice Jack
it's
to
made
come to them?
well, that's the thing, is like when you originally see Batman, he's still in his cowl and everything, and I don't remember if he calls him by his name or not. I have to go back.
Oh, you think the Joker already knows?
I think he probably has an idea. It makes the most.
Which makes sense. I mean, he's like a genius. I think.
No,
that's
he
always-
he does. He has a genius level IQ. So it's just one of those things of, once again, this one leaves you with
Well,
more freaking questions than goddamn answers.
I hope that question does get answered, that we get some closure to that.
I'm
and figure
pretty
out where
sure.
that's
I mean,
coming
like, that's probably, we've got 4 more issues, so it should be
Yeah.
interesting what this turns into. But the thing is he still has the ability to manipulate the other Harley. I don't know if he will, because he seems pretty good natured, but at the same time, this entire scenario is manipulation.
from. Who's the bigger manipulator?
Mm-hmm.
Certainly, it seems that Jack is the smarter of the two. So.
Oh no, well. That's the thing, though. Is I don't think
At least he
Batman's
didn't
at
pick
his
outside of his own
Yeah.
self.
Well, I don't think Batman's
not.
at his full reign right now either, because
he was breaking down, and he's broken down because of what happened with Alfred. So.
yeah. So now he's just like thinking of how he wants to handle things. So that's kind of my thing too. Is you have 2 geniuses, but one is taken out by emotional pain.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, really
Alright.
interested to see where this goes. But yeah, I think
Yeah.
That's
I think
it.
It's a good place to end for this.
16.75, y'all.
All right, well, let's say bye then.
Bye.